Dear friends and close family and lovers, the many lovers and appreciators of our fabulous, wild, extravagant friend Simone Ellis, it's a joy and a privilege to welcome you to this fabulous love fest. There's so much to say about Simone and her life, so many stories to share, and I'm just so happy that we're all here together. It's truly amazing. My name's Rita Anderson. Incidentally, I'm described as a Dharma sister and co-graduate of the School of Hard Knocks. I don't know Simone. I only met her I haven't known her as long as many of you have. I met her, I think, around 2005, and continued a rich friendship with her. But as somebody said, if you only met Simone even once, you would never forget her. She left such a strong impression on anybody and everybody who was privileged to meet her in their life's journey. But it feels like such a sense of deep family and connectedness in this room today, and I can feel Simone with us so strongly. So we're going to start off with an opening prayer by Ken Rinpoche of the Garden of 1,000 Buddhas. He's our resident teacher. Thank you, Ken Rinpoche.
Yeah, everybody, Tashi Delek. My name is Kembo. I know my Dharma friend, Small. Yeah, I understand her speaker, then I understand. Then now she is passed away. Then I do hear prayer for her. Okay, please, you guys together, like our prayer. I have only here Tibetan language, but you guys thinking this enough. Okay. Yeah, my English is very bad, but a little I talk to like this. Okay. This prayer's name Kunda Zambu Malam. Kunda Zambu is Samantha Bhadra's prayers. Okay. O Nansen Gonde Damje Gun Yeje Lan Nin Driveni Redama Re Jomra de Kunda Zambu Malam. Tamje yen bodang da ngombra zo de sanja yu kunje ye nan de ma de lang zong no yang je de konde ni ke me de ni re na sanje de ma re sem jen ko wan chang kam song sem jen tam je je me je de de bur yo kun de zang bo ngai jang je jen me ba ye de ni ye la nang dong zena ro ko je ma da ten be be de ma gu de za ra na je ma gu ra re so la ni ba Sai san je jiang ang da me nong sen yi se me ba lan de ye nga la chao ba bang tong me xie ba rang dong den be zo dang dong a me ri be sa cha mang ga ba ngo je la yi xie nga bom ba Thomas San Jering and Jong de Li Yin Taji Bi San Ji Ye Zang and Jong Yin Ye Zaya Tang Tong Zhou Jie Tang Ban Jong De Zer Ye Ren Chun Ma Nyong Thomas San Jing Yin Bi Ye Ma La De Ba 강산 고비 심진제 랑존레 방오시니 이세젠 본타지 교가예 저바지면 제바차 자섬인제 강라강더 나조다 나예 도지문랑제 강산 고비 심진 Rajone Nintambra Yodambo Sem Gentrbana Yelama Rentrubaya Jayante Me Tomel Tekama Rentrubija de la He Jarvale Mandrashi Bazazun Jong de la Da Yendanzin Pacharan Jetembalan Korvalo Senjuadang Telenya Motonga Jetongele La Jinjim Tetrasem Gentrubi Jeteme Mare Yimbeta Sanjenga Yamalam Jekunjere Baraji Lenje Be Mare Bashiba Teme Yimbaye Kunda Ta Be Mare Bada Yini Zanzambai Lenje Kunda Mare Ni Simjin Kunjen Truyi Sanjenga Yamalam Jen Korbi Sem Jen Tamji Temen To Be Mumbasan Nizan Be Shibada Liberang Oshibarasho Ninzin Lo Yetezong Shembacha Mojibale Pajato Boram Jeta Sega Dani Dan Tro De Yang Adam Tambi Yihong Cha Bin De Bidong De Dan Ji Den Tribade Zongzen Le La Sen Tame Shin Bin Triba Membit Kamchadong Vijadase Chinete Kong Yarema Sanjenga Yamalam Janda Chashin Besenjen Debedong Vitsarma Banda Chashin Batsarma Lan Shibarang Solebaya Ringbarang So Singjut Kundoye Shetabara Tsuru Yor Jenamala Jikashi Batramonjo Dangwe Paja Tembal Danzen De Sosa Baji Shedang Driba Mambeze Nyave Zo Se Dorenga Sanjenga Yemalam Dodo Sem Jen Tam Jeje Shedang Tra Boji Beze Panglang Me Darang Solo Ribarang So Singjo Save Ye Jetobra Shorang Sen King Barajabana Jenlan De Seme Belo Ngajara Tra Po Samji Dajen Ta Tse Dunga Nyong Le Den Driba Membeze Pondang Nyong Ve Lare Je Sanje Nga Ye Malam Kingsamji Besimje Na Teze He Barang Solo Re Barang So Singje Na Nyamba Ni Je Tantoy Ninzen Ta Be Baja Je Da De Ye Me Song Han Je Ta Zen Ren Sen De Ba Le Su Je La Ming Ni Se Driba Nya Vi Ni Se Nyo Sang Je Nga Ye Malam Je Resam Ta Tse Ji Ba Na Dan Zin Me Da Nang Se Shebarang So Sing Je Nan Chulun Tong Me Yi Yu Te Me Tam Nyung Ying Ba Lan Tau Da Mo Dang Je Ba Janale Lotamo Bin Diva Ja Me Zang Song Ja Sanje Nga Ye Monam Je Tamo Tsin Bin Min Ba Tenpa Sere Bin Dang Sharbi Tome Ye She Tobar Jo Kamsam Sem Jen Tam Je Kun Kun Ye San Je Nga Dan Temen Tru Bi Je Re Song Da Da Ten Me Le La Je Le Do Me Lan Tru Ba Da Nga Ne San Je Tong Mai Rojo Zhu Ban Durbi Tse Kunda Zang Be Manam Je San Je Tang Je Sen Je Tang Je Ma Le Ba Chu Je Yin Sang Jia Xiu A Ho Tsen Che Nam Je Top Chen Je Chun Me Re Ba Rang Zan Ma La To Chen De Tu Ba De Da Ba De Tu Sen Je Tam Ji Che Ba Sang Ni Ngon Sang Jia Nye Da Za Ye Sen Ba Dang Da Dang Sa Yun Ju Wa Da Nye Ma Dong Je Long Bo Rani Gun, the Zambo Je Kunje to Bandejuna, Kansam Sen, Jentam Je Gun, Namjuranga Yamanam. Dungaram je droni jan tare san je tobo ju ma ho ngonza san je nawa da ye dan ye za je wo du je chenpo yanda san ban te jin tam na la san je zang san ba men khor je go de je ngonza ra ba de me ba yin de ba ji ye za vi xin gang de da yin de na chen bi ji Jewa yin jeba ma jeba re tere jine nanda yanda yo dege daga mala doba ye zuja sanje timen dober yo de yada benzan awan bodana ye zowa semje donga mnyung yin kawa jeba manga yin lale lape le dan te da sanje nyondo yo Okay, now it's finished. Prayer. Then, maybe 2 weeks ago, what is that? Allah? She's called Deborah. So that this time I have their Shedra, only teacher me. Then lots of people there. Then I can't come in the hospital. Then I thinking a lot, but now although I am a little busy, but then I come today here. This is a good connection. Okay, thank you. Only this. Then I have one kata and flower? No. Flowers were banded? Is my flower? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Kempo-la, for that really beautiful blessing to begin our ceremony today. And now we're going to hear from another very dear old friend of Simone's, Katherine Taylor. She's described as a friend deluxe in wild activist cohort. She'll be delivering a toast to Simone. So all I can say is let the wild rumpus begin.
Thank you for that amazing intro. I would like to do a toast for Simone, so if you need to get a drink, now is a good time.
Speak into the mic.
Okay. Tell me if I'm too loud. Okay. My name is Katherine Taylor. I'm an old friend of Simone's from about 2003. And yeah. Simone saw the humanity and the goodness in all of us. I'd like to read a poem that she wrote. I think it's from quite a while ago. It's called Corn Love. Corn Love. Corn, like corn on the cob. Corn Love. Okay. I used to hang out in my grandma's neighbor's cornfield. It was creepy the way there was a world down there by the roots that couldn't be seen from the road. You could hide there. You can get lost there. You can get lost most places you can hide. That's the only thing I remember about fields and agriculture growing up, and And I ate raw corn there. I think I figured it must have had something really wrong with it. Maybe it was poisonous or something, because it was so sweet and good that everyone would be eating it all day and all night and forever if there wasn't something terribly wrong with it. So I waited there in the rustling leaves, waited to die from the good, sweet, raw corn. Later, I went into the house to catch up with the cousins, and I forgot about dying. But I never figured out how something so good and sweet could be overlooked by the whole world. Simone. She could be serious and sensitive and spiritual and hysterical within mere moments. She saw into you. She saw you. And she wasn't afraid to look into herself and connect the dots of this beautiful web that connects us. She connects us, and she always did. People thought I took care of Simone when she was sick, and I did. Eat, Simone, eat! And when she thought her vacuum cleaner was a kangaroo due to the chemo, I made sure she knew she was sane. And I ate up her stories, for she was the caretaker. She cared about words. Speak up. About science. Expand your mind, dig. About humor. Don't forget. About history and how it used to be. She was the heart of her community. Her door was open. You are sad. Lost is her fighting love, her outrageous cackle, her soulful eyes, ready for laughter or tears. She was your cheerleader, but never naive. You turn toward grief and ride it out. Sometimes the wave hits you out of nowhere, and you want to just call at the very least, or at the most, to see her grow old in New Mexico or wherever. Telling stories, swearing and living large, shuffling around wearing turquoise, jade, and coral, punk rock, peaceful warrior, adoring the evening light. She deserved it all, but don't feel bad for her. Look at the quality, the breadth of this community, her people she leaves behind. Live through her death and be who she knew you to be. Know that already she has a community of angels, and they are just as badass. So help me raise your glasses. Let's toast the one and only Simone. Thank you for everything that you've given us. Cheers. And you won't be forgotten. Cheers. Cheers. Thank you. Just badass. So help me raise your glasses. Let's toast the one and only Simone. Thank you for everything that you've given us. Cheers. And you won't be forgotten. Cheers. Cheers. Thank you.
Next, I have a reading from another close and dear friend of Simone's.
Here's sweetie pie.
Thank you, because I am tall. A friend named Susan Noel, who's not able to be here, but I feel that I knew her from reading this incredible descriptive piece about Simone that just captures her essence to a T. So anyway, it's a delight to be able to read this piece today. I met Simone in July of 1977, which was my first summer session attending what was then Naropa Institute in Boulder, Colorado. I was given a room in a sorority house associated with the University of Colorado. Can't seem to pull from the mist the exact moment or way in which I met Simone. But once you saw her one time, she stood out from everybody else. She was like a character from a dream. She was wild, an untamed spirit, if you will. I remember possibly that summer, or maybe the next when I returned, that she was living in a tiny maid's room on the 5th floor of the famous Hotel Boulderado. This historic place was the center of much of the action going on in the poetry scene there. Those were wild days. The counterculture, even though it was late, was not yet dead. Simone was gorgeous, drop-dead gorgeous. She was tall and willowy. She would smoke her cigarettes with a dramatic flair, eyelids half lowered, a pouting lower lip, and a low laugh. Her moods were like flames, suddenly shooting out of nowhere, excitement and joy erupting in a moment. Then they could close down in depression just as quickly. I remember wanting to please her. She was definitely a magnet to me. One of those people who seemed in those days, if you were young, able to lead you into the right magical places, the coolest events, and especially to get you in with the right people. Things were never, quote, calm. I soon moved into that tiny hotel room with her that eventually I got my own. We would swan down the gorgeous main, heavily carved staircase early in the morning to receive the free coffee and coffee cake that was laid out there, then swan back up to lie in her room having coffee and cake, often the largest portion of our daily diet, except for matzo ball soup at the New York Deli, another hot spot. That room of hers was like a tropical paradise to us. Friends were always coming by to hang out, and new poems were always being read aloud. Simone would shout, "Stop, stop, shut up, everybody. Now listen to this." And we would listen to whatever poem, whatever by her or by me or anybody else that she would read out loud in her dramatic voice. Simone was a great friend to a young, shy girl from Kentucky who had very little idea of where she'd landed. She protected me even when I didn't want her to. She dressed me, wound beautiful scarves around my neck, which became a lifelong practice of mine. She wore leopard print silver eyeshadow or bright turquoise blue to match her eyes, black eyeliner. She taught me how to use it. There's never a calm or still moment with Simone all that time. She would create adventures if there were none. What I remember most about that time is that she would wake up from sleeping on the floor because she insisted that I have the single bed. Her eyes would open slowly, and suddenly she'd say in her lowest, raspy voice, "Okay, what are we going to do today?" There was always an exclamation point at the end. When I didn't answer quickly enough, because I usually kept a pillow over my head, she'd stand up, pull out her long, flowing robe, and say, "Well, I know one thing. It all starts with coffee." And off we would go to the lobby. We felt like royalty. We lost touch after I moved to New York with Larry Fagan, my soon-to-be husband. But she visited once, bringing all of her excitement and energy and always shimmering joy over everything right into our little apartment. She always loved us both, and we loved her. I had not seen her in so many years until we reconnected briefly about 2 years ago, of course, on Facebook. It's wonderful to see her beautiful long face on the screen, and we emailed a little. She seemed happy. Then that was it. Another beautiful, unique, one-of-a-kind life. Over too soon. I will miss her so much. Her parents named her Nancy. That was ridiculously inappropriate. So she named herself Simone, which was perfect. She created like an art piece or performance art the person she wanted to be, then stepped inside and made it completely authentic. She cared about people genuinely, always wanting to help, and she went on a lifelong quest for adventure, for love, for beauty and art, always interested in something new and exciting. For me, that's the best any of us can ever do. I'm thinking about her so much these days. They just don't make them like her anymore. I would never say rest in peace, Simone, not her. Whatever she may be, she will be romping and swanning, leading people by the hand, laughing, but never resting. She never had time to rest. I loved her a lot. It's impossible to believe she's gone. And next, we'll be hearing from Michelle Richaud, ghetto gypsy sister and heart care specialist. Also reading Jenny Dorn and Sydney R. Davis. Thank you, Michelle.
I'll begin by telling you that I've only known Simone in person for about almost 2 years. We found each other on the streets one night outside of the Badlander. There were craptastic karaoke, and she was there. So was I. And then we never stopped keeping in touch afterwards. I told her about the Fringe Festival, which I produced, and she quickly jumped on board, and I quickly realized I would have to coddle her a bit to help her through the process, and she did a terrific job. She was she performed on a school bus that had been converted to the ghetto gypsy bus. And she traveled through the streets of Missoula with her one-woman show, and Jared recorded it, and so maybe later we'll share that with you via Facebook. So when this springtime I decided I wasn't going to go forward with Fringe Festival anymore, I was looking for a job, and she was hoping that she could find a friend she could trust to be her trustee. And I'm very proud to be that person today. It's been a pure honor to witness her life. As short amount of time as I have, I do feel like I walked into a movie that has been rolling for some time, and it's like 5 minutes left to the show, and the climax has already happened, and the credits are rolling, and here I am speaking to you about this fabulous woman who has blessed me in so many ways in such a short amount of time. And one thing that she was a continual blessing and gifting, and the gift of community is really what I want to draw upon today. And I look out and see all your smiling faces and know that you're connected to Simone and her fabric, her absolutely colorful and vibrant fabric is who we are in this room. That was her life essence, was her collection of friends and stories that she made with them. And I enjoyed the many hours on the phone and in person, talking to her, hearing her stories, and asking her questions about her fabulous life. And now I get to do that with her friends, too. Some of them, like Jenny Dorn, and recently Izzy Zane, a.k.a. David Perkins, and her recent editor, I'm blanking on his, Clark, what's Clark's last name? Diamond, of course I can't forget Diamond, Clark Diamond. And in preparation for the evening, I wanted to read. So I have this honor of going through her paperwork, and Simone had a very unique way of filing things. In between the important paperwork, she had also inserted pictures of family members, pictures of herself with her friends, writings, and so on and so forth. It's just a wonderful archive to be thumbing through. And one of the things I recently, just yesterday, found, and I was like, oh, now I know what I'm going to read. I'm going to read this, because it's in her handwriting, it's in her voice, it's her story, and it was on a yellow legal pad, which she loved to use. And it was the story of how she chose not to become famous. Many times, apparently, she was able to jump into the limelight, and she chose not to for several reasons. And I guess she doesn't want to share that with you anymore, because I can't find that writing. It's in my house somewhere. It just disappeared. Isn't that amazing? I just thought that was really Simone-like, right? So I'm not reading that to you tonight. But I will read from the writings and the tributes of Jenny Dunbar Dorn, who was Ed Dorn's wife. Ed Dorn was the editor and founder of the Rolling Stock magazine that published her work back in Boulder, Colorado. Oh, wait, where's my, there, a sign of getting older? Tuesday, July 11, July 18, 2007. Dear Simone, oh, it's supposed to be 2017. I caught it. I'm so sorry I was gone when you called. I was in London. Oh, just imagine a British accent here, okay? Because Jenny's definitely British. I'm so sorry I was gone when you called. I was still in London, phone on airplane mode. Back in Denver at the airport, I listened to your voicemail from last Friday. You say you're off to New York, going to visit Ed and Miriam in Woodstock. You sound calm and confident. I think of calling you to say I'm back. But my ride appears. I get into the car. The phone rings. It's Michelle. She says you're in a coma, on life support. I don't really take it in. I don't want to yet. I flew back to via Vancouver and thought of you with bears in BC after you left Bolinas and Arthur. You were always wild at heart. You loved animals, wanted to get out of Missoula, go as far away as possible. The bottom of South America, say, as though deep down you knew, even as your brain burst into stars, that you were about to drift all the way out into the cosmos. Goodbye, sweet, wild Simone, dear old friend. Typical of you to go out with a bang, then stay around long enough to rest up, surrounded by friends and music and poetry. I will miss your craziness, your intellect, your laughter, and above all, your unconditional love. These 40 years you stood by me, there was no one like you, that's for sure. And I will love you always. Jenny. P.S. I bought the book you said you'd sent me in the last voice message, The Taliban Shuffle by Kim Barker. It's terrific. Thank you. And this is a poem. Oh, this is a letter from Simone, sent soon after she moved to San Francisco, late 1979. I'm living in a ratty but clean hotel on Bush and Polk. A hot plate solitude I always loved. Toulouse seems happy enough too. I take him out for walks and he can stay in my room without much hassle. The manager's name is Victoria and I can't tell if it's a she or a he. She's big and black with blonde pigtails and a very dykey girlfriend, and one white kid, and one black kid, and 4 little dogs. All girls, of course. I live right next to the office, so hear everything coming and going. I went to make a film of this place. Reading Homer, the Odyssey, translation by Rio, and Lucretius. Love those cats. There's such a mixture of magic and day-to-day soap going on. Then I wonder if the magic is actually real. Like maybe it's possible that the gods really did show up and that was a thing you could write about. Then I wonder what happened to the gods. They sure don't turn up no more. I'm going to read this to you and read the author at the end. 17 days of 49 in the bardo. I learn of your death hanging out in the bardo. Simone. I remember in 1992, our friend Carrie, who was dying of cancer at the time, and the Tibetan Book of the Dead that Simone read to her on this side and that, urging her on. And Simone, and weeks later, when we both saw her sitting in midair, repeating fervently, "You're just a projection, you're just a projection." Well, these kinds of things became normal with Simone. We were always flying everywhere. I never got to fly like that with anyone else. Not really. It was quite an experience to partner with someone who completely adored my music. She wrote great poems, inventive art critique, and biting essays. Her heart beat true. Her old head injury, the challenge. She suffered at the hands of her own need to write. She agonized over the shape and sound of her voice, always seeking out the marrow, the fundamental. Simone wrote and directed First Class. It was our collaborative two-woman show that played in Santa Fe to sold-out houses and went on tour to Salt Lake City, Utah, and closed in St. Mark's, New York City. I am stunned. Whenever I thought of her in recent years, I was grateful that she had managed to cure herself of Hep C using interferon. I thought that if she had managed to cure herself with such strong medicine, that she had dodged the big bullets. But sadly for us all, she did not. I am heartened to know that Simone died peacefully, surrounded by love, something she knew a whole lot about. You had mine, Simone, and all for the better. Finally, I have a poetry book by Rita Mae Brown, who signed it for me after a weekend consciousness-raising experience in 1976. She wrote, "Raise hell and raise consciousness, as well as consciousness." Excuse me, I'm going to say that again. Raise hell as well as consciousness. That's what Simone did. She was a rant. By the time you hear this, it is day 19 in the bardo. Sydney R. Davies, August 4th, 2017, composer and one-time partner of Simone Ellis. Cheryl Nothi is a local poet who knew Simone well. She's not able to be here tonight, and she asked me to read to you a poem. Funeral Blues by W.H. Auden. Stop all the clocks, cut off the telephone, prevent that dog from barking with a juicy bone. Silence the pianos with muffled drum. Bring out the coffin. Let the mourners come. Let aeroplanes circle, moaning overhead, scribbling in the sky the message, she is dead. Put crepe bows around the white necks of public doves. Let the traffic policemen wear black cotton gloves. She was my north, my south, my east and west, my working week and my Sunday rest, my noon, my midnight, my talk, my song. I thought that love would last forever. I was wrong. The stars are not wanted now. Put out everyone. Pack up the moon, dismantle the sun, pour away the ocean and sweep up the wood, for nothing now can ever come to any good. Now I'd like to take your attention to the video, or the sound. Oh, no, it's not a video. Pardon me. You can close your eyes. It's not a video. It's a recording of Izzy Zane, a.k.a. David Perkins, reading his Simone Ellis tribute. You can stare at her while he reads. Thank you for doing that, and thank you for everyone making this happen.
Simone, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Where have you gone, sweet Simone? This is David Perkins, or Izzy Zane as you knew me. Are you looking down from some celestial perch, marveling at this diverse array of friends and family here to mark your passing, and pay tribute to your indomitable spirit? Are you chuckling to yourself at the tears that flow and saying, don't cry for me, Argentina, or Montana, or anywhere else for that matter? Are you saying, get on with it, live your lives large, follow your path, you know what to do? In Roman times, funeral goers carried little bottles to catch their tears. The more tears collected, the more important the love of the deceased was thought to be. There were professional mourners who joined funeral processions, wailing and moaning and crying into their bottles, all to make a few dineros for the family of the dearly departed. We know there are no professional mourners here today, and Simone would not condone any of that tear-catching nonsense. What we do have here are the many members of Simone's tribe, the extensive network of people who knew and loved Simone for exactly who she was. And what was she, you might ask? To me, Simone was a force of nature, more akin to an energy field than anyone else I could think of. She seemed to be in a perpetual state of magnetic flux, with the atoms and molecules of her being constantly rearranging themselves into novel complexities. Maybe something closer to a virtual reality mirage, both real and unreal at the same time. She was a churning urn, burning fun, guaranteed to blow your mind. She was a whirling dervish of mystical mayhem. She had learned the art of crazy wisdom at the feet of Trungpa Rinpoche, the holy madman himself. As the scholars put it, the goal of crazy wisdom was to shock cognitive boundaries and jolt moral sensibilities. I think we can all agree that she was quite successful in those areas. I was pleased to hear several of you had maintained a constant vigil over Simone's body as she shared her mortal coil during her last days. When my dear wife Carrie died in 1992 at the Libre community where we lived, Simone sat with her body for a long night, quietly singing and reading from the Book of the Dead to soothe Carrie's passing. This full circle seems fitting. The members of Libre send their condolences to you all. We're sad that Simone will not be there next summer in Colorado as we celebrate our 50th anniversary, making us the oldest continuous counterculture community in the United States. Simone was a great friend of Libre, and her visits were always occasions of glee and exuberance, not to mention poetry, music, and theater. If I had to pick one outstanding memory of Simone, it would be the day we spent with her great mentor, William Burroughs, in Boulder, Colorado. Simone had arranged for us to get together at William's apartment and just hang out. We spent an afternoon of animated and poetic beatnik hilarity, drinking vodka and sampling Colorado's finest herbal products. During a discussion of meditation, William demonstrated his own link, Zen meditation, which involved thoroughly washing a dish with the fewest strokes possible. I have to now admit that on the trip to his bathroom, I couldn't resist taking a quick peek into his medicine cabinet. It was empty, except for a lone bottle of aspirin. Very zen indeed. In the late afternoon, when William was feeling frisky, he suggested that we go out to the edge of town and shoot guns. I thought, gee, shooting guns with William Burroughs while buzzed. What could possibly go wrong? Someone immediately read my mind and jumped in. Yeah, that's a great idea, William. But let's have another drink and enjoy it first. In the sweet haze of that duty, the artillery mission was thankfully forgotten. But our life and death challenges were not quite over. As the evening fell, William got a call from Allen Ginsberg, asking us all to join him and Peter and Lasky for a dinner at a Chinese restaurant across the street from William's apartment. We freshened up a bit. William in his dignified suit and tie, complete with a candy cane. When we got to the dark street, I realized there were no crosswalks in sight. Meanwhile, 4 lanes of traffic were roaring past us. Again, Simone read my mind as I was thinking, oh great, I'll forever be known as the guy who got William Burroughs killed in a jaywalking accident. Simone whispered, it's okay, we'll just stay close behind him. William stepped boldly from the curb, looking neither left nor right. Immediately, all 4 lanes of traffic came to an instant stop, like the parting of the Red Sea, and William sauntered through in a stately manner. The ever-polite Boulder drivers didn't honk or yell, but sat patiently till we were all safely in the opposite curve. Simone purred in her raw, honey voice, see, I told you it'd be okay. I got the feeling that she had experienced this phenomenon before. Not all of our times together were so dramatic. I fondly recall camping trips with Simone and Sidney Davis, sitting in silence on the banks of the Rio Grande, watching the river flow to the sea, the pixelated moonlight. So many good times. There are many sides to this multifaceted and immensely talented woman. To paraphrase Walt Whitman, she was large. She contained multitudes. She was a walking bundle of contradictions, as many of us are. She was fierce and flamboyant, yet at times as meek and vulnerable as a church mouse. She was an Amazonian queen in her magical belt, leading a brigade against human stupidity. But she was also a foot soldier doing the grunt work, giving voice to the displaced, displeased, and dispossessed. She was a poetry princess embodying the spontaneity of a child and the wisdom of an old woman, simultaneously. Simone did not suffer fools gladly, yet she graciously provided sanctuary, comfort, and encouragement for the most wounded among us. At times it felt like there was a cage match raging between her angels and demons in her own hidden chambers of pain. She was both doomed and graced to be the eternal referee between these colliding forces. Some think that when we die, we lose control of our lives and become the person that people want us to be. I, for one, wouldn't want her to be anything other than what she was. An incandescent beacon in the darkness. An authentic and remarkable woman in every respect. I know we will all miss her and think about her often, maybe at the strangest times. It's been said that our being does not finally leave this world in spirit till the last time our name is spoken on earth. If that's the case, Simone is destined to remain among us in some disembodied form or fashion for a long, long time.
Thank you. That was Izzy Dane, a.k.a. David Perkins. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Joanne Truxell. Simone's other mother shared membership in Montana's Writers Guild. Joanne, thank you. And thank you to everyone who made this evening possible. I'll fix the microphone for you.
Real 4 feet for that. Well, I'm not ready for Simone to be gone. I must tell you that. The week that she was in the hospital, I think I cried every day. And it's hard to explain to myself what this grief was, since in life, as I knew Simone, I loved her, but she was complex and difficult. And I also understood that I like complex people, and I particularly like difficult people. They up the ante a little bit. They make you a little on edge, and they give you a little bit of authenticity from them to you. And I always like that, because Simone, by being always Simone, always gave everybody around her permission to be who they were and who they are. And I'm grateful for that. Some wonderful images that I have of Simone, and they're rather innocent for all of her complexity and her acumen, her wonderful abilities, her integrity, her mental and emotional ranges. There was, to me, a rather innocent quality to Simone. And I have in my mind some kind of images of that. And one was when she and Allie moved to the farm, and it was her birthday in June. She had a $20 bill. It was the last money she had. And she said, very joyfully, "I want to take you for breakfast." And believe it or not, in Arley, Montana, the four of us could have everything we wanted for $20. And we did. But I looked at her, and there was something about her joy. It was so fabulous. And when I think of Simone, I think a lot about that joy, the way she was. A couple of things have happened. It was a shock to me that she wasn't around, because she's a big presence. And you miss that big presence, because something about the dimension of it made you alert and made you think. And she was an artist, a consummate artist. And everything I did, Simone was saying to me, "That is great, Joannie. You've got to do this, and you've got to do that." And she was always telling me what I needed to do and affirming my own rather, dim cowardice, always saying, "No, you have to do this." And I did, and got a poetry book out, and, nervous all the way, and I'm a writer, and I couldn't call myself a writer, but she always did, so I finally started saying, okay, that's what I do all the time, so I guess I must be a writer. A couple of things I'd like to say that are kind of important. The week she went to the hospital on a Tuesday, we had company at our house, and Wednesday, I told them, I said, I have to go to this art show. I promised my friend that I would do this. So if you will excuse me, I'll be gone for a while. So I went to this art show of my friend Adele Pittendrick, and it was cells. She had looked in microscope, and she thought cells were absolutely beautiful. And something about that show, I just absolutely loved it. And so I was telling her, I'm sorry I'm a little late, but this friend is in the hospital, and we're all, sort of on edge about that. We're feeling very sad and so on. She had a book there, and she wanted us to write in this book about how we felt about her show. So I wrote in it and said, I love that show. Weren't so many pictures, you could really internalize it. And I flipped through to see what else other people had written. And this is absolutely the truth. I came to a page in which the first word were, Simone Lazarly Ellis would have loved your show. She was an art critic in New York, Santa Fe, and Missoula. She died today. Keep up the good work. I was so excited because here was Simone in Bozeman at this art gallery with me. And I couldn't wait. I wrote it all down, and I called Adele over and said, this is the woman. She's here. And we were just sort of agape thinking about that. And she would have loved that show because she had an incredible sense of what good art was. Wonderful. In fact, her book, Santa Fe Art, I went and got it and put it back on the coffee table after 15 years of having it put away. The other thing that I'd like to tell you is that Simone wrote me a letter, and this is the letter, and I got this after she died when Allie was cleaning up and helping out, doing, clearing her things. It was in an envelope with 2 books. And in this letter, she says to me, I suppose you wonder why I never really was always holding back my affection for you. And she said it was because of, her relationship with her own mother. And I always felt a little bit like Simone was my daughter, my difficult daughter, my wonderful daughter, in that way that you take on parentship with people. And Simone was good at being parents to children. She was wonderful that way. So in this letter, she says how she's going to be better, she's going to be more punctual, she's going to do everything right. She says, I love you, and thank you for being kind, and all these nice things. What amuses me, and I can't help but laugh, is that the letter was written in September of 2016. And here it was that she had on the outside of the letter, says, it was for Jude. Thank you, Jude, for always being kind to me. That was the easiest part of Simone. The hardest part is missing her.
Gosh, it seems so right and even important that we have so many eloquent speakers and poets to flesh out even a bit of the richness of Simone's soul and spirit and incredible life. It's kind of mind-blowing just to hear all of these poems and reflections, just feeling what a great privilege it is to be here. Next, we're going to be hearing from another old friend and co-conspirator of Simone, Larry Evans. Thanks.
Thank you. It's a sad moment to be able to remember Simone, but on the other hand, it was always a wild ride and a lot of adventure with her. I met Simone back in 2003 when I was doing video with Cold Mountain, Cold Rivers, and we were both involved in trying to, come to grips with the new digital technology, the new video stuff that was shaping a lot of the way people viewed art. And so that was a pretty exciting thing, and it was very interesting for me because we came from very different backgrounds. I've always been a bit of a scientist and whatnot, and I was trying to understand the technological aspects of this stuff, and Simone was approaching it as how to utilize a media. And I came to realize that there were some very fundamental different ways that we looked at things, and it all kind of came together for me just before I came here. I was listening to Krista Tippett, and she was interviewing Margaret Mead and Gregory Bateson's daughter, and she mentioned that the common denominator for both art and science, the common ancestor, if you will, was a sense of awe or a sense of wonder. And I think that among all the qualities that I saw in Simone, that would be the one I would try to bring back and share with you all, was her ability to appreciate and gather that sense of wonder, or to experience the moment and not be too encumbered by those the cobwebs of the past or the bright lights of the future. So I think I'll leave it at that. Thanks for your time there. So thanks, Simone.
So interesting, Larry, that you mentioned that Krista Tippett program on NPR today. I was listening to it as well on the way down, and the woman, Gregory Bates's daughter and Margaret Mead's daughter, was talking about living a life of spontaneous improvisation. I went, wow, that describes Simone. It was so often just a great party whenever Simone was around. And it was interesting because she was the director, the orchestrator. She'd often provide the costumes and the sets and the guest list and the music. And it's interesting because she was often at the center, but it wasn't about her, because she was so gifted at recycling energy. Like all of us, she loved to receive a lot of love and even adoration, but she also gave it right back to everybody in spades. She just, she knew how to love, and she was so kind. On that note, I'd like to introduce Allison Troxell, once partner, friend, always and still on the karmic highway. Allison Troxell.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to read a couple of things. One is, first of all, from Simone's dear old friend, Bridget Meyer, who's a poet and a painter living in Taos, New Mexico, and they have known each other from the very early days, 1970, of Naropa. And this is her piece about Simone that I'm really honored to read. Simone was sexy, hip, beautiful, penetratingly receptive, funny as hell, and really smart. She had an aura of tragedy about her, a not uncommon trait for talented women in this patriarchal world. Simone saw through the constraints she encountered, and she rallied against them in her writing. She identified with the liberated, sophisticated women writers of Paris during the 20s and 30s, bisexual, dabbling in drugs, flirting with the glamour of madness, which I imagine was about as far as she could get from her rural roots in Montrose, Colorado. I first met Simone in Boulder during the summer of 1975. She and Sidney Goldfarb and Rick Fields and I went to see the Rolling Stones perform in Fort Collins. Cindy still swears Simone levitated during the concert because she was high from having so much fun. If you wanted to party, Simone was the perfect person to party with. I have many memories of the wild gatherings Jane and Bastian Fiago hosted in their home in Boulder in the late 70s after Naropa poetry readings. And Simone and I would dance to Stevie Nicks' Rhiannon and then strip and get into the hot tub. As soon as we were joined by Allen Ginsberg and Gregory Corso, both naked, we'd hop out. But Simone was hooked on the beats, and she felt she was one of them. And later, when she moved to San Francisco to attend the Art Institute to study filmmaking, she spent a lot of time with Gregory, and she developed a long-standing friendship with William Burroughs. I only recently had the opportunity to read her published interview with William, and it is stunningly brilliant. Wow, Simone, I'm really impressed. I'm so grateful I got to say that to you before you died. Simone embraced via William the Breon Geisen cut-up method for writing poetry, but I preferred her straight-ahead verse, such as the first piece in her book, which I can actually hear her read in my mind. My poem. Burned 2 bagels reading your fucking book and not one poem about me. And that's so Simone. She starts out being vulnerable, devoting herself to someone else's project or creative endeavor, making a sacrifice to do so, burn the bagels, feels left out, gets hurt, gets pissed, then uses that anger to rise up to make her own poem. You want to say, you go girl, and we did. And leveraging her rage. What'd you say? Oh, I'm sorry. It's a clumsy thing. And we did. Leveraging her rage was a strategy that worked for her until it didn't. And her blood pressure blew, and her brain hemorrhaged, and she went into a coma, then died a week later. I'm still trying to take it all in. During the early heady days of summers at Naropa, Simone occasionally taught writing workshops. Sometime around 1976 or 77, a young woman took one and never looked back. She ran with a technique I believe Simone learned from Bernadette Mayer, who maybe learned it from Kerouac, about writing without stopping or editing for a set amount of time. And Simone's student, Natalie Goldberg, took this technique and made a life's career from it. Her book, Writing Down the Bones, is a direct outgrowth of Simone's course, which Natalie actually acknowledged in a sidelong inquiry. Whatever happened to that red-haired woman who taught at Naropa? She once asked me. What happened was that Natalie was highly disciplined due to her Zen practice. She had no brain injuries or habitual tendencies to distract her from buckling down to work. I like to think that it is really Simone who encourages those thousands of people who read Natalie's book to jumpstart their writing. And holding that notion makes me feel happy. I feel it sets the karmic record straight. Simone and I often talked about this, how ideas are in the ethers, how they come through us and no one owns them, and it is the person who takes them through to manifestation in the real world who gets the credit. She and I had a good laugh about it, but it's poignant to imagine how Simone's life might have been different if she too had had a practice, a discipline. She had much more interesting life, albeit, and a much more unique point of view than many published writers who were successful. And despite her hindrances, Simone had a marvelous book of poetry, Rosy Belligerence, published in the early 80s. And she put together a superb book on Santa Fe art while living in New Mexico in the early 90s. She also wrote art criticism and commentary on current events for the New Mexican, the Huffington Post, and for her blog, Saying It So, which is still up online and available to read. As for Buddhism, Simone's heart was devoted to these teachings. In the past 10 years or so, we emailed Chogyam Trungpa quotes back and forth and discussed how to apply his wisdom to our lives. She was always curious about the retreats I attended, and we talked about them often. She was a friend of the Buddhists and a Buddhist in her inclinations. She loved Trungpa, she loved the Dalai Lama, she loved to listen to Pema Chodron's tapes, and she was directly connected to Tulku Sanok Center, Awam, nearby in Montana. She did very good practice there and made many good friends there. That Sangha really came through for Simone during her coma when they chanted mantras for her while she made her transition from this life. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. In closing, there's a memory that insists it be included. Sometime in the late 70s, Simone actually went to Paris, and while there, she went to an upscale couture salon and received a trendy, stylish haircut. When the time came to pay, the stylist realized she had no money. And she never imagined a haircut would cost $300 US, or the equivalent at that time. But she had charmed them so much and looked so great, everyone laughed and said, "For you, mademoiselle, it is our gift. Your new hairdo is free." No one but Simone could have pulled that off with so much goodwill and humor. And when she came back to Boulder looking like a rock star, and speaking with a French accent. She started carrying around a little dog saying, "Mon Dieu, but all of the French horses, they have some." There are so many stories. There is no question in my mind that Simone was extremely intelligent, devastatingly sensitive. Passionately engaged in life and ever eager to find meaning. And ultimately humor in whatever transpired, and to turn it into art. She had big creative plans, always. Ah, Simone, I shall dearly miss your throaty laugh, your genuine caring, our durable friendship through many incarnations in this lifetime. You taught me so much, dear, and I thank you for your final lesson and reminder that death indeed comes without warning. I honor you, and I honor your wild, extravagant life. You will always remain in my heart as a treasured friend. Goodbye, sweet Simone. Travel well. Choose wisely. I love you. From Bridget. And I wrote up Simone a letter because I've been needing to talk to her a lot. Hi, Simone. I had a perplexing experience today while I was walking the river. It was late afternoon, summer heat was rising off the sandy earth, and while the river was running wide, the willows were thin but abundant, offering periodic shade and occasionally brushing against my cheek, when I was suddenly assaulted by a strange flow. My thoughts were making my eyes unsure, and the ground beneath me seemed to wobble. And I had the urge to call you and talk to you about the death of my close friend Simone and what it was like to experience her dying and her last breath and the astonishing beauty of it, how her physical separation was broken, her soul released from its particular and exclusive location in her body, then came into a free and fluent universe of belonging. I saw that. All of this amidst ancient Tibetan prayers going and going and going, which I thought you would really appreciate especially, and mostly all of the mercy and kindness that arrived from everyone, the nurses, the surgeon, the palliative care doctor, her lovely brother, her buddy Jared, and her many, many friends. Everything she might have needed in her dying was given. I wanted to tell you how I was having sad surges that crimped my heart, thinking that my friend Simone ever felt unbelonging or loneliness because she was the subject of so much great affection. And I wanted to make sure you knew how much I loved you. I wanted to call you and laugh like hell about death. You love talking about death, the big KO, you would say. And Buddha and Baba and Chief Joseph and all of the major dudes and dudettes in the pantheon, and mention your favorite New Yorker cartoon, which was a drawing of a plain old regular tombstone with, "That was weird," etched on it. And laugh some more, maybe until we cried, and probably both at once, because you could do that, about the sweet and mysterious and suffering adventure called existence. But more so, I knew absolutely that if you happened to have picked up, in whatever state you might have been in, and heavens know you've had a few, you would have come right to my side. I think you might have said, well versed in sorrow as you are, and in equal parts joy, that this sorrow would be faithful to itself, would know its own way better than I ever could, and at the right time would pull the cord of grief until that coiled hill of tears had been reduced to its last drop. Then it occurred to me that my mind had been sideways and you were gone. And in that wake, I wanted to go to some of what I learned from you, a few of the many treasures you had offered me, some do's and some don'ts. And this is what came to mind. Keep the main thing the main thing. If you use the phrase lifestyle, you can be sure you have neither. Paranoid people are sometimes those who simply have all the facts. It is very important not to make up your mind that you are one thing. Beauty matters, objects respond, magic exists. Toad's Wild Ride could end up absolutely anywhere. Drugs can be a way of life for some, as in a stab at William Burroughs' freedom from the claims of the aging, cautious, nagging, frightened flesh. Sometimes eating is boring, and reading a book much more interesting. Health is sort of arbitrary, as in healthy, 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 dead, a phrase you loved. There is a dark tourist within each of us. The underside has an underside. Taking care of oneself is oxymoronic. Don't try to save people, love them. Listen for off-screen sounds, do tiny ceremonies frequently, honor your mentors with new creation, be generous with encouragement, and above all, keep loving. Forever thank you, Simone, for the difference in me. And don't worry, be happy, Simone. Don't worry, be happy. Thank you.
That was just a big wow, Allie. Thank you so much for that beautiful tribute to Simone. Before we hear from the next speaker, I was just inspired to tell a very short vignette about Simone that expresses, probably as well as anything can, her completely outlandish and wild and outrageous spirit. This occurred a few years ago. I was sitting in my cozy house in Polson, and I got the phone rang, and it was Simone. She said, "Roberta, hi. I'm on Reserve Street in Missoula. There's a lot of traffic, and I just took a hit of acid. And thought I'd drop up and visit you for the night. I'll see you in a while. Bye." Isn't this so, Simone? I mean, what other friend would ever? But so she showed up. I remember it was, I think it was Barack Obama's second term. He was up for election, and I got Simone settled in my meditation room upstairs. She, as many of you remember, she just adored Barack Obama. And whenever Simone was behind anything or anybody, she was 100% there. So we put Barack's photo on the altar, and she spent the next many hours weeping, cheering, shrieking, blubbering, and just expressing her undying love and adoration for Barack Obama. It was amazing. And now we're going to hear from a very beautiful guy, Simone's gentle bear and partner, Jared Dowdy. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you all for being here. First, I'm going to read something from her brother, Jim Ellis, in Colorado, who couldn't make it here tonight. It says, "First, thank you all for coming together to celebrate the too short but eventful life of Simone Nancy Ellis, my sister. She would be honored and thrilled by this gathering. And a special thank you to Allie, Michelle, and Jared for putting this all together and for shouldering the load during our recent vigil of Simone's passing. Simone entered my life one fateful June in 1952, setting off decades of togetherness and competition, love and envy, fun and fights, pretty normal American middle-class siblinghood. Back then, life consisted of water skiing — she was years ahead of me — boating, She was the most dangerous driver on the lake, and ultimately adolescence with its freedom of thought and travel. She was probably the most dangerous driver on the road, too. We were in many ways direct opposites of each other. If one of us held a positive feeling about something, the other was assured to be negative. She was creative in so many ways, while at best, I was mildly creative in a business plan or maybe a construction wiring plan. She was words, I was numbers. She never understood to make a long story short, while I still don't get just talk to me. We both felt we had won the genetic lottery. Raised by parents who did not stay close with their parents or siblings, it is probably not particularly surprising that Simone and I did not stay close through most of our adult years. Our pursuits were fulfilling to ourselves and completely foreign to each other. But there was always a shared hope that we would each find what we were seeking and could live safely and well. Thankfully, we reconnected during the last few years. Simone had wanted to get out of Missoula, out of Montana, for quite some time. After spending time in Missoula during our vigil at her bedside, I didn't understand how she could want more than the love and support so obviously felt for her here. Time and again, I was struck by the sincere, honest, affectionate pain her friends expressed during her passing. Leave that family or friends, it was a mystery to me. But she was ready for the adventure that waited over the next rise. She was always ready for the next adventure. And now she has embarked one more time, leaving us poorer for our loss and infinitely richer for the experience. Travel well, Simone. And thank you, one and all, from the bottom of my heart, for taking her heart into yours. And I couldn't access a printer today, so in true millennial fashion, I'm going to read it from my smartphone. Let's see here. So, I first met Simone on a hot August day, not unlike this one, in 2011. I was 21 years old, and I found a new place to live on the upper level of a fourplex in Northside, Missoula. But I was worried about my cat because the landlord warned me of 2 vicious dogs in the apartment right next door. I was relieved to learn that these supposedly ferocious creatures were just Little Zoot and Sweetie, a crested hairless and a Chihuahua, respectively. I was even more relieved when I met their owner, an intriguing older woman of striking intelligence and eccentricity, who talked like a beatnik and claimed to have known the actual beatniks, and among several other legendary figures. Claims that I was initially skeptical of, given my nature, but claims I eventually learned were all true. Little did either of us know that 6 months later, we'd be hopelessly in love, and that over the next 6 years, the top of that fourplex would be our own little world, a world filled with laughter, art, animals, education, cinema, music, politics, the occasional insane argument, and some truly unforgettable conversations. Our initial connection was through music, film, and television. I was blown away by how insightful she was, much because of her time at San Francisco Art Institute and decades of studying a wide variety of genres. Finally, a person who cares about the small details the way I do and is actually willing to discuss them. She's like me. Wow. Then, when I took a look at her own work, I realized the magnitude of her critical prowess and that it transcended the arts and went into things like philosophy, nature, Buddhism, the cosmos, and of course, politics and social issues. She was a true critic that really understood the difference between subjective and objective. Damn, I thought, too bad this lady is 38 years older than me. It would be highly irresponsible to make a move on her, and she obviously would never go for me anyway, so yeah, I don't have to worry about that, right? We'll just be friends. Well, we did become besties, as she called it. We were inseparable for several months, and then by early 2012, we were officially an item. It wasn't easy. Simone claimed it was actually far harder to deal with than her same-sex relationships. And yes, we were judged and even lost a few friends. And yes, there were unique challenges that the age difference presented for both of us. We weren't keen on getting married and instead stole the phrase ghetto married from our favorite comedy, Shameless. And we obviously couldn't have kids. Even if we had been age appropriate, she had been physically incapable since her early 20s. So instead, we had to make do with 8 animals. The aforementioned doggies, her kitty Yen, my cat Oscar, a bird named William Powell, and 2 deceased birds named Myrnaloy and Spiritus, and a cat named Panther who lived downstairs and decided to move in on us one day, and she's still here. Pet names for each other also became a thing. One day I asked her for a favor, and she replied, "Sure, Pookie." I was like, "Pookie? Really? Is that where this is going?" But it stuck for both of us, and whenever we worked together, we were known as Team Pookie and would celebrate that fact. When we weren't inside having discussions or engaged in projects like Simone's film school, we were out and about taking ourselves and the doggies to some of the most beautiful areas around us. Our absolute favorite place is a town called Hot Springs, Montana, where there's no cell reception or internet, and where we can get away to soak, eat, drink, go on walks, meet with friends, and most importantly, write. We got a lot of work done in a little cabin up there in particular. Our go-to local spots are Greeno Park and the cemetery right next door to us, where often our 3 cats would join our walks with the dogs, making for quite the visual. As you all know, Simone lived an incredible life. The sheer scope of her experiences, the places she went, the people she knew. Despite a life more than well lived, she wanted more. To a real artist, all that matters is the next project. Months ago, she finally got a hold of her money and was on her way to doing some amazing things, starting with a trip to New York and Santa Fe to reforge old connections, and continuing with funding great art/media projects and making creative investments to fulfill her remaining dreams. Simone was the love of my life, my best friend, and my greatest influence, but perhaps above all, she was my emotional and intellectual confidant. We understood each other on a remarkably deep level. We could freely express any thought to each other, no matter how offbeat or strange, and we discussed our darkest secrets at length. Thankfully, Simone's passing did not come without closure for us, and the timing involved was very strange and coincidental. The last year had been pretty rough for us. We were on and off again, but our lives remained as intertwined as ever, being next door and with the animals and everything. A few days before her death, she reprofessed her love for me in stronger terms than I had ever heard. She said, "I'm in love with you, Jared, and that's not going to change." I told her I still love her too, of course, but wasn't quite sure if we had a future on that level. But then, the night before she died, we had this huge 3-hour conversation where we were more honest with each other than we had been in a really long time, and planned to get back together and finally make the move out of Missoula to make something of ourselves. So it's bittersweet. I'm beyond glad that that conversation happened, but I'm devastated by what could have been. The next day, her and I ran some final errands together after she picked me up from work. She complained about a weird headache, but we both brushed it off because she always had weird headaches, and headed to the car dealership to get a quote. And she headed to the car dealership to get a quote. She dropped me off at home. I'll have everyone know that she was in a very good place that day. She was hopeful, peaceful, and her wicked sense of humor persisted. The hematoma took over and she collapsed in her parked car. Her last words, according to the Nissan employee, were call Jared and have him pick me up. An ambulance got there first, but it was too late. She wouldn't die for another 7 days, but she never regained consciousness and her mind was already gone. My Pookie is gone. But, yeah. All I can do now is, all I can do now is honor her legacy. I can, in every way I can. What she wanted for me happens to be exactly what I want for me. So we also wrote a screenplay together that's close to a second draft, and Simone's closest friends and I are ensuring that all of her work is properly archived. The animals are here safe with me until we find a proper home for the doggies, and I'm lighting candles every night for her at her altar for her 49 days in the Bardo. just as she did for the countless friends she's lost in recent years. My greatest hope is that I can one day see her again. I love you, Simone. Thank you.
Our last person on the program is someone named, a friend named Calliope Nicholas, Simone's beloved Greek goddess all the way back. Also not on the program are a couple other friends, poets who've asked to read poems, so I'll introduce them after Calliope speaks.
You guys rock. I've never been in Missoula, and I'm here, not wondering what the scene is, and to be here, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's great. And by the way, it's Calliope Nicholas. Greek. It's Greek to all of us. I arrived here on Friday, walking around town that Simone had lived in for many years. This is my first time here. And I ended up reading through some of her journals, went through some of her papers, some of which were her notes on our time together in Boulder in the 70s. It's been emotional reading this very private side of her journals. That was one thing I remembered vividly, from our time together. She had to write in her journals every day. And there was a flood of memories that came up from reading and going back to the day-to-day lives that we held. We were there together in the Boulderado Hotel. And it was of the brilliant time that we created in Boulder. Young, beautiful creatures within the circle of the Beats, New York, and San Francisco writers. The world was open and bright, charged with energy and potential, and we were right in the middle of it, and we were working it. It was great. Then to read on some of these notes, sitting in her apartment last 2 days, of the notes that I had, after I'd left for New York City and left for the East Coast, of Simone's struggles physically and mentally as the world started to weigh her down, wear her out, eat away at her muse of writing. It saddened me actually that I wasn't aware of the weight of her life. I sense it was something she kept from me, and to be honest, I'm not sure if I would have reacted in the way or how much I would have listened if she had opened up. But last night in her notes, I came across a passage of how she remembers how she was during that time in Boulder and the kind of person that she was there and her years there. And that was a person I was blessed to know then, the Simone that is still profound in my heart and in my memory. So let me leave you a bit of a final impression of Simone at her very best. And what's interesting to me is you guys and everything, you got all the essence of her also. So she still carried that all the way through all of these years, which really makes me so happy. She was the most beautiful, whip-sharp, and intriguing person I had ever come across. With her long, straight, sleek, copper-red hair, her big blue eyes, and a wide mouth that was always ready to smile or laugh, that whiskey, smoky, husky laugh that brought grown men to their knees in worship of her. I had recently arrived in Boulder, a young, very angry rebel, and with a don't come near me attitude. And somehow, Simone saw something in me I wasn't yet aware of, and she decided to make me her project. I was a human being worth caring for, and chipping through that tough exterior was something that she took on. And thank the goddess she did. She wouldn't leave me alone, filled my room with books and assignments, Blake and Heidegger, Neruda, had the Beats allow me into their classes at Naropa. I discovered whole worlds, whole universes through her. And the adventures we had, drinking with Burroughs in the afternoon, shooting guns with him, pulling Gregory Corso out of the crazy situations he kept getting himself into. And this Simone became my first great love. And through all of this, I marveled at her amazing intelligence, her knowledge of so many different aspects of the world, her unfiltered quality and how she interacted with others. She'd let you know what she thought of the statement you just made, and if it was uninformed, watch out. Her verbal sparring with Burroughs and Ginsberg and the New York writers were the highlight of my days. I had no idea at that time how famous the Beats were. I just thought that they were only middle-aged guys, these strange middle-aged men. And I was only aware that there was this intellectual sparring that they would do with Simone, and that she was holding her own, this young, beautiful female. And I was soaking it all in. It was an intense time, an amazing adventure. We were so awake, so tuned into the world around us and each other. Simone, over the years, declared that I had saved her. I'd helped her out with early health crisis and issues that she had had, and was always there over the 41 years that we've known each other, even after moving to New York City and years later marrying and having a family of my own. I became the upstanding citizen in my community, which kind of blows me away after all what we've been through when I think of it, because that was certainly not my intention. But I did my best to be there for Simone, so on occasion she would declare how I'd saved her. But it was Simone who saved me. She was the first believer that I could be somebody. She pulled open her passionate heart, her force of nature. Again, these are all words that I've been hearing throughout the evening, which has been wonderful. Her kind of shamanic aspect and crazy wisdom into that belief. I am somebody now, and I will never forget her, the beauty of Simone. These last few days have also been a reminder that, we all know we're not going to be here for long. I actually composed these notes today at the Garden of 1,000 Buddhas, a place that I enjoyed going to. And a thought came through that, we're only here for a short time, and to honor ourselves and Simone, we need to all continue living life big. Don't let the bitterness of getting older get to us. This amazing world. There's pain out there, but the world is amazing. So rock on, Simone. I'm going to miss you, my love. Rock on.
Next, Ted Pleasant, I believe. Is that your name, Ted?
No, actually, it's Tim.
Great. Yeah, come on up.
Yeah. Bring a little poem. Well, first of all, pick up my little thing. Introduce myself. My signature, my writing signature is T. William Pleasant, and that's how I signed my thing at the end. You can call me Tim. Some people do. Some of my friends call me T-Bone. Let me get that going too, but that may be a little too confusing right now. But I just wanted to say, I met Simone, I think, maybe 20 years ago. We knew each other from around town, and anyway, and met Allie back then too. And one thing I noticed about those two people together is they're always friendly to me. And it seemed like they're like some of the very few people I knew who really were. And one time, it was about 2005, because I remember I was doing this. Simone mentioned that she was a writer by trade, and that word trade stuck out to me. And I said, that's it. We're going to talk. We're going to sit down. And I got her phone number. We started talking, and I hired her to be my writing coach, and we worked together for several years and through a couple screenplays, and now I've got a novel that's almost ready to hit the ebook market, and this is the particular story is one I brought up to Simone one time, and I said, I did this, I told her about this movie idea I had of rats trying to save the earth by killing off the human beings, and their society is like, I said it's like, if you can just picture like the Soviet Union made up of rats, and the humans are the fascists. And I pictured like the movie being black and white, kind of grainy black and white with scarlet subtitles, and they speak their own language, and it sounds like this. And Simone was just in hysterics. She loved it. She was just like, yeah, man. She just was like, wow, It's like, yeah. So, and that's the thing I wanted to say about Simone before I read my poem is, I'm really grateful to Simone. First of all, throughout this whole our celebration of life for her, I was imagining her sitting in that chair over there, because it's kind of like it's like the special chair, and I have my personal perspective. I wouldn't be surprised that she's right there, taking this all in. Maybe, but the thing is, I really am grateful to her. Is I've always I chose her as a coach because I knew her. But the thing about her is getting to know her and knowing the experiences she had in life, the treasure of life experience that she has been. And I put that in this poem and she was very supportive of my writing. She was very, very much a champion for my writing. And is that good? Probably want to go it up a little bit, yeah. Probably like it right about there, maybe. Probably hear it in the back even. There we go. Well, I'll go ahead and read the poem. It would have been, I don't know, beginning of last month maybe. I was sitting down at Northwest Tea Company, and I was drinking Bodo Black, and I got thinking of that name Bodo, and I got thinking drinking Bodo in the Bardo, and so I wrote this so I wrote it down as a sentence: drinking Bodo in the Bardo with the Buddha, and then since Simone passed, I turned it in this poem for her. Drinking Bodo in the Bardo with the Buddha in honor of our explorer of life, Simone Ellis, August 6, 2017. Yo, Simone, you out there in the Bardo somewhere? Disintegrating to return in a higher integration? The new life of our beloved Simone with a new name, new brain, without the damage. In no time at all, you'll emerge from your chrysalis. You'll flutter your wings in Brazil, and a solar storm will rock the heavens, thanks to your chaotic magic. Or maybe a beautiful, strong stallion on a clover-rich pasture. But before you get there, you just might want to drop by here, so we'll welcome your presence, for your chi remains with us, as does our love for you. Perhaps that is the true completion of the Bardo, the passing of one's chi at the celebration of life. We thank you for sharing yourself with us, and we release your personality. But this isn't rejection, only honor for your personal sovereignty. May your next incarnation take you to nirvana. But don't ever forsake the sacred pain nor the spiritual ecstasy that you enjoyed in this, the lifetime we celebrate. May you grace the future with the beautiful passion you embrace this present. Missoula doesn't know its own treasures, but we know. We recognize your value, and we thank you for being that jewelry case, that treasure trove of experience. T. William Pleasant.
There's one more poet, Rita, who would like to read, but before that, we're going to have some music because the musicians need to leave by Effie Richaud and Andrea Harcel.
They didn't know Simone as well as I did. But this was my request. I'm not a singer, but they are. So, and I'm sure you'll all be, you know the song, so sing along.
If you want to sing along in the chorus, you're welcome to.
Let us pause in life's pleasures and count its many tears, while we all stop sorrow with the poor. There's a song that will linger forever in our ears. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis a song, the sigh of a weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. While we seek mirth and beauty and music bright and gay, there are frail forms standing at the door. Though their voices are silent, their pleading looks still say, oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis a sigh that is wafted across the troubled wave. 'Tis a wail that is heard upon the shore. 'Tis a dirge that is murmured around the lowly grave. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis a song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. Oh, hard times come again no more.
Amen.
Gosh, that was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, guys. Am I correct that Rita is our last poet and our last person on the program today? Rita. What's your last name, Rita? Lovely. Welcome. Thank you. I also wanted to, I was supposed to announce that there are bathrooms in the back and another one through this door if anybody's interested.
Thank you. I'm reading today because if I didn't, Simone would say Rita, because she actually gave me my voice as a poet. In 2003, which a lot of us seem to have met Simone in 2003, we were thinking about what was going to happen with bombing Iraq, Afghanistan, and so Simone had this event at the Crystal Theater about poets against the war and musicians against the war, and I had just seen the movie Pinheiro the Puerto Rican poet. And afterwards, I wrote this poem. It was like in the middle of the night. And I took the poem with me to this event, and Simone said, "Oh, are you going to read this, Rita?" And I said, "No." So she got up on the stage and introduced me. So there was my first time. So I feel like I should read this. I also read it again on Hiroshima Remembrance Day, which is today. So it just seems like I should do this. You and me and we are the vision of who the stars tell us to be. For they are the Creator's creation, speaking to our spirit vision on being. Our inner spirit that seeks to see the who of who we are, to see our place in the world, to see the world created, and then destroyed by those who know but do not reveal purpose, truth, armed with rhetoric to mask the evil systematically delivered by bombs and verbs, atrocities of words and shattering bullets, newfound weapons that mass destruct the human race, the human spirit, at a pace exceeding the Creator's creations. Deliverers of evil hidden by sterile visions of destruction, reducing life to terms of acceptable loss and jargon, sanitizing the blood of the innocent into collateral damage and softened targets. Hardened hearts performing surgical strikes, claiming destruction magnificent in their hollow eyes, darkened spirits, those so-called leaders ruling over raining terror on humankind, destructors of humanity. The opposite of those who be good and see good and work toward good. Beyond that which you and I and the galaxy reveals, the good in the hearts and souls and minds of humankind, the kind of human we need to be, defining those who hold beauty and love and community and friendship in the palm of our collective hand to deliver as friendship gesture to those that would and could and will destroy the creation made by the Maker, greater than the sum of all our deeds, good and gentle and humble, strong, the kind of good we struggle toward, greater good, the greatest good, better than the evil revealed in rhetoric of untruth by those who honor the gods of greed and power and unjust moreness, more than all or any deserve or ever deserve or deserved. Yet there is not more, only less, and bless is less for humankind. You and me and we together, humankind, the kind of human who seeks to create a vision of peace. We be peace, we seek to be in peace with peace as we seek the greater vision,
Sorry, I'm not on the program, but I have to just say one thing. Simone, over the years that I knew her, talked about every one of you, and everybody nailed it. It's fun to see all of you in person because, I've heard so much about all of you. So I just have to say that, so I'm wearing this huge, gigantic Tibetan, I don't even know what you call it, but one day we were out at Rinpoche's at Awam at the Garden of 1,000 Buddhas, and it had just barely started. There was hardly anything there yet, and Simone was really on the path and wondering, and like you guys all said, talking about death all the time, and out of the blue, she's sitting there with Rinpoche, and of course he really didn't speak any English, but he walks out and he comes over and he hands this to her, and she goes, "Wow!" And she's looking at it, and he talks in Tibetan, and he just gave it to her for no reason, and she looked at it and she goes, "I got a map." So she got the map. She knows where she's going, and I just had to say thank you, Allie, and thanks for sending it to me. All right, thanks.
So in honor of the last performance that Simone gave publicly, because she gave a lot of performances privately, and a lot of us got to enjoy that recently as well as in the past, dating back to potentially her childhood, right? Her last public performance was on the Ghetto Gypsy Bus, which will be here shortly. So in between the time that the Ghetto Gypsy Bus arrives to take us on a tour of all her favorite places she liked to visit, including Oli's, the laundromat, Five Guys, Wendy's. Where else should we go? Cemetery. We need to go to the police station. Where else do we need to go? We gotta go to the bank. Gotta go to the bank. Oh, the Oxford and the Nissan dealership. That's 9 places. So the ghetto Gypsy Bus will be here in about 15 minutes. So meanwhile, we're going to close, and Roberta's going to come back up and close us out. And please do enjoy this marvelous food, and just get ready to party down. We're going to be, there's a DJ on the bus, and we're just going to have fun in honor of Simone, because she loved to dance. In fact, the last time on her 65th birthday, we went to the Top Hat, and we saw this Mofro, and, excuse me, I can't remember the name of the band, I apologize, but it was a funk band, and we danced like teenagers. That woman can dance. So we're going to dance in her honor tonight and visit her favorite spots. I hope you can join us. Roberta, thank you.
In closing, I just want to give a heartfelt and huge thank you to all of you who came out to celebrate Simone's dazzling, stupendous life, beyond the beyond, truly, today. So this time to hobnob with each other, tell some more Simone stories. They're endless, aren't they? And just enjoy each other's company. But it's a beautiful, beautiful day. I'm privileged and honored to be here, as I know all of you are. Thank you so much for coming.